And then, yeah, Sean, I just want to get an idea of how you really got into music in the first place. Like, what's your whole story?
Yeah, I think it's very similar to a lot of other people's. I think the SoundCloud era played a huge role. I'm sure everyone says that, especially for electronic music. But around like 2012, 2013, I was like 14, 13, and um, kind of just getting into music. And yeah, SoundCloud was the place to be. People were, that's where all the action was. People were posting things, and your favorite artists were kind of. It was almost like more of like a social network than um, and music, which I guess was the point. Um, and yeah, you kind of get really, or I got pretty pretty into it, pretty invested in keeping up with artists, and that's what I did like every day. I would check SoundCloud. I would kind of like look for music, and eventually I started to kind of just get curious. Like, um, I remember there was this one song like dubstep was like starting to come out, like starting to really get popular, and there were just some crazy things that were going on, and I was just like, yeah, I need to like figure out how these sounds are made, and it was really kind of like dubstep in house and like different things like that I was hearing on SoundCloud. Um, that I downloaded the FL Studio when I heard this song by this guy. I remember his name, Speaker of the House. He was like yeah, I don't know, people might know him, but way back he was putting out like kind of electro stuff. Heard one of his songs and automatically pirated FL Studio. Of course, that's the blueprint. Um, and yeah, kind of just started fooling around. Uh, that's kind of how I got into producing, and it just kind of evolved from there. Like it turned into something like from kind of a hobby into something that I started taking seriously and trying to, cut out time for. Um, and then, yeah, it kind of eventually turned into, yeah, DJing a little bit, producing for other people, producing for myself, putting out tracks. So it's grown and it's been fun, but it has been, again, like I said, it's been a long, a long time, which is funny, but it's great.
Yeah, man, 7 or 8 years since your first post on SoundCloud, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's a long time.
That's crazy, man. So you started in a cracked version of FL Studio and
Yeah,
kind of just
humble
figured it out,
beginnings.
right?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. I mean, again, YouTube as well was, I don't know, one of the most unbelievable tools to learn anything. And artists were posting like remakes of these songs, or like, this is how I made this. Here's the patch for this. You like download whatever, you go in and you kind of experiment. And then yeah, you kind of just find your way. And like the pipeline kind of was make remixes if you're kind of a smaller producer. Um, Hopefully, it starts to get traction. Hopefully, you get good enough where you can kind of move up to like making originals, and then you kind of move on from there. At least that's what I think the pipeline is. um, and that's kind of how you learn. Like, yeah, you download software. I think it's remixes, or if you're like a vocalist or you want to do some other things, then you can um, kind of fool around with your own vocals. But it's just that YouTube, talking to other people. That's just at least how I thought, kind of think you learn.
Yeah, man. How long did it take you from when you started to when you were actually able to start posting stuff on SoundCloud?
Yeah, that's a good question. Um, I feel like this is probably the case with a lot of producers as well. Like I had a whole project before, this project, which is again like 7 or 8 years. So there was another project that I started for the first 3 years or 3 or 4 years. Um, and yeah, that's where you really find like the stuff that's so bad. Um, but it's amazing to listen to now, but it's just so bad. And that's kind of how you learn. You kind of just continue to grind. Uh, and put out stuff, you have to put out stuff. You talk to people, like collaborate, just get yourself out there, and then once you're ready to, kind of make a move, like I felt like I was at some point, I was kind of like things were starting to sound good enough. Um, I was like, screw it, like let's kind of put together a whole new project and like vision and really start to invest in that. Um, yeah, so I feel like there's a breaking point, and some artists maybe just continue with their, their original project, which is fine too. It's just, I guess, depends how you want to, yeah, how your path is, and if you want to make, another project like that. But yeah, I think that's kind of the kind of the process, at least for a lot of producers.
Yeah, man. So for you, it made sense to pretty much abandon the first artist project you did and then create Goons.
Yeah, I think so. There's something about rebranding which I don't know. It could be good or bad. Like it obviously worked out for Marshmello. He was like a dubstep. Don't even remember what his alias was. He's like a dubstep DJ, talented, obviously. Um, but it kind of depends on what you want to do. I also kind of like the name better. I kind of started doing some artwork for it as well. But I think it's kind of like a clean slate. Like if you're really trying to, you know, if you're trying to have quality, like you want your quality to be better, you could like private your tracks on SoundCloud, or you could kind of like, but still like YouTube, there'll always be stuff around that has maybe like your project attached to it. So it's kind of a clean slate if you know that you're ready to really kind of invest in a new project. Um, it really just depends, though. I mean, I know a lot of producers just they still have like on SoundCloud they still have their stuff from 10 years ago, which is kind of actually awesome.
Yeah, crazy. Awesome, man. So you started posting remixes initially, right? On SoundCloud? And how did that go?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it. I was kind of doing a few different genres. I would do like house, a little bit of house music, and then some dubstep, some like anything. But yeah, there was this website. It was called like Remix Packs or something, and it had just all the stems, all like it was like a centralized place where you can go and look at all the contests that were going on. And ultimately, like yeah, like if you want to, there were like in those days, I feel like that's fizzled out a little bit, but in those days, there were artists were holding contests, remix contests, and there were actually like prizes. There were like you can make money off it. Like you can actually do this and make money, and also get it maybe posted somewhere, post on Spotify or wherever, and make it official. So there was like a lot of at least back then there was actual incentive to do these contests, and so that's what kind of brought people to it. And then also you get good publicity and whatever. But yeah, like I would just go on that website and just look for stems and just pick out a bunch of songs, uh, and kind of just go through it, make different remixes and like kind of select which ones I liked and post on SoundCloud. And again, SoundCloud's amazing because there's an algorithm reposting kind of before repost got a little bit broken, but there's an algorithm where you can reach anyone. So that's kind of the beauty about it as well.
Yeah. And on SoundCloud, it's not really like Spotify or Apple Music. Like SoundCloud, if you post a song, there is a way for it to potentially be shared with other people without you doing any work, really, right? Like you don't really need to do too much marketing.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, SoundCloud will always have that like that audience, that like really interesting like model of like reposting and that social kind of aspect as well. That Spotify doesn't really have, Apple Music, these don't have. Um, I think I don't know if this might be unrelated to your question, but I think where SoundCloud kind of it unfortunately kind of got less popular is when reposts started being like sold for money, and people kind of because that's what kind of drove it. Like I would hear new music. That's how I discovered music because my favorite artist would repost, another underground, someone who's coming up. But then people started selling them for money, and then your whole feed, like the whole point of SoundCloud, kind of the discovery, it kind of got a little like diluted with that. Um, but still amazing. And I forgot what your question was, but hopefully I answered part of
You
it.
answered you. Yeah, it was more of a statement, but you answered it. Yeah, man. So if you things have changed, right? Now SoundCloud, like you said, is really not as popular. How do you go about like releasing
Right.
and promoting your music now in this in 2023?
Yeah. Yeah. It's changed so much, I think, since, when you started, at least when I started posting remixes and posting things versus now. Um, so how you release music, how I do it at least is I'm just really trying to put out the best quality. So unfortunately it's less songs and it's trying to be higher quality. There's trying to be more thought put into it. Um, and the way you advertise it is, I don't know, it's really just social media now. Obviously, everyone knows TikTok. That's how you kind of go viral. But I've seen a lot of other DJs and like other producers use Instagram, and there's like they've gotten good traction. So someone would be like recording their set, or this is how I made this, or like a couple proposed like during my set. I saw like Audien do that like here. So there's just like things that you can do to kind of bring attention, and it's kind of like a little clickbait-y, but I've actually seen Instagram also be used as a pretty effective kind of marketing tool. Maybe you made like a bootleg remix and you're just trying to get attention around it. Like you'd play it at a set and have people, have someone film you and put it on Instagram. So I think it's really just like Instagram, TikTok. Um, I would love to say YouTube is still influential, but like like those YouTube channels, I wish I could say like they are. I don't know how influential they are now, like compared to, I'm sure like proximity, like back in the day, that was just like that was it. Like if you got on that, like you're like the guy. um, so it's definitely changed. It's kind of shifted, at least I think, from YouTube, SoundCloud to Instagram, TikTok, um, and I don't know whether it's good or bad. I mean, I think TikTok's amazing because it literally gives you thousands of views if you want for a random video. Um, the other side is artists who don't put out constant content like that. You kind of get like buried a little bit under people who are always active, and that's kind of what I've heard from other artists, which is sort of unfortunate. Like if you're not like that outgoing person and that person who wants to be like on the screen, on the stage and on the screen the whole time, it kind of it kind of sucks a little bit. And that's me a little bit, but also I've heard from other artists. Like I remember seeing something, and sorry I'm rambling, but I'm almost done. Um, I saw something from like Chelsea Cutler, who's an indie artist, and she's like, my label won't let me release this song unless I post like a TikTok about it. I'm like, that's crazy. Like that's the sort of, but that validates it, how effective it is at really marketing your stuff. So I think it's really all there.
So now it's maybe a little bit less about the music than it used to be, and more so about your ability to like market and perform.
Yeah, I think that exactly. And that's maybe a little cynical, and people are like, well, maybe you should just post more, or maybe you should care about like the music, or maybe you should care about like trying to go viral more, things like that. I remember like Russ, the rapper I love, says that he's like, you have to understand that it's like it's a way to get there. It's not it's not because you love, posting on social media. It's because you really want to get to that point, and that's why you would post, on TikTok, on wherever. Um, but yeah, it's unfortunate. Like if you're just not that sort of person, um, like if you just want to focus on the music, you don't want to really, and it takes time to like make TikToks or edit videos. It takes a lot of time. So um, if you really want to focus on the music, um, yeah, you might be at a disadvantage. Um, but hopefully you can make up with that with talent. I
Yeah.
think.
Well, for you personally, Sean, what have you found that works? Because it doesn't seem like you do too much content, right?
Yeah, and that I've definitely thought about that. I almost do none. I mean, if I'm releasing something, I reach out to to YouTube channels, to see if they could support or get a post or something like that. I would make like one TikTok, maybe two TikToks of how I made the song, and try to make it really short. Um, what I found works is actually kind of a combination. Like if you're able to get some support on YouTube, I do think YouTube channels, if you know what you're looking for, still kind of works, if you're able to get through the door. Um, and also, yeah, Instagram and TikTok. Like if you just, I like being kind of granular, so I like doing like how did I make this synth, or how did I make, you know, yeah, this, or how did I sidechain something? How did I mix this down? I think it works. Like I posted a TikTok just about how I made like a patch for a song that I put out, and it was just like it was kind of weird. It was a weird technique, and it was cool. And I think I got a lot of, yeah, engagement from it. So I think kind of little things like that. But I'm probably not the best person to ask, because I'm sure there are people who are doing much more effective marketing that I'm not. I don't really care much about, and I'm also not like super familiar with. Um, and then you could also talk about like Spotify playlisting. Like how do you even get in the door? Like I don't even know. Like that's, and right now that's like kind of the be all end all, and will be for the, I don't know how much longer, but it seems like if you don't get that, like you're kind of, you're stuck in a way. Maybe you can get some support from, again, these other channels, but um, yeah, it seems like that's also, if you can get some sort of support, you open the door to thousands of random people, maybe tens of thousands, listening. But I have no idea how that works. I don't think anyone does, except the people who are, in the editorial staff. So it's an interesting one.
Have you tried to get on any playlists?
Yeah, so I put out a song in 2019 called Catch 22, and it got on a playlist. It got on three playlists, like all when it came out. And one of these playlists had 1 million followers. It was an editorial playlist, and the song now has like 2.5 million views. Just like I didn't even do anything. So it's just like, and then like five other songs that I released later, they don't they don't get on the playlist, and they don't do as well, obviously. Um, but I don't think there's any methodology. I know you can pitch, you can pitch it, pitch a track before you release it. Like who knows if the editorial staff listens to it, and who knows how to, like how do you even decide whether, again, art being subjective, music being subjective, how do you even decide whether it should be on like an editorial playlist? Um, it's a weird thing that I haven't like heard. I wish people, or maybe Spotify, talked about it more, or Apple Music as well. Because it's just weird. It's just one or two people kind of deciding fate of songs. It's kind of interesting, but like again, they can do what they want. But I know there's so much power, um, that it's sort of tough. If you don't get it, then if you do get it, it's great. But if you don't, you're kind of, you know, it's kind of disappointed.
So you don't really know how that happened though with Catch 22? Like, do you apply or anything for it to be on the editorial playlist?
Yeah. So you pitch it like if you get it, if you upload your track, yeah, 2 or 3 weeks in advance to Spotify, Apple Music, you get to pitch it and submit it through kind of a form stack, and ultimately it says it goes to the editorial staff and they review it. I think that I released it. I released the song with another artist, and I think someone from the editorial staff that like I knew the name of. I think they actually like found it through this artist that I was releasing it with, and
Mm.
that's how I think it got on there. So I don't think it was random. I actually think this artist that I released it with knew someone in the editorial staff, or somehow they found it through her because she was bigger. She did a song with Flux Pavilion right before
Mm.
I dropped it with her. So there was some like momentum there. So I think, yeah, got eyes on the song. So I think that's how it happened.
How did you link with her to be? I'm assuming she's the vocalist on the track, right?
Right,
How did that
right.
happen?
Um, yeah, I was collaborating with one of my friends at the time, and I was just looking for vocalists, and I think a good way. This is also maybe to answer a question of how to find vocalists. Um, a good way to find a vocalist would be like I went to his Spotify page and saw all of the. He was kind of he's not massive, but and that was the point. You can't go for crazy popular vocalists, but so I would go and I would look at his page and see what vocalists he worked with, and um, and kind of just reach out to them and say, "Hey, I'm this guy's friend. Here's something that we did together. Like, I'd love to like talk about collaborating on this song." And you attach the demo, and for one or two of them, it worked, and I went um, with this person, and it was really just cold email. I mean, there are definitely other ways to do it. If you had like management, which I didn't at the time, you yeah, you'd probably put them in charge of that. But if you're like in the position that I was in, just cold email, try to be sincere. And she was really nice and she was really awesome as well. She's very talented. Um, so I just sent it to her. She's like, okay, I like this. Sent something back, and then maybe did that once or twice, and then it's really done. It was probably the simplest collaboration I've ever done because she was like, okay, I have an idea. It was perfect. And I was like, all right, this is done. Yeah.
That's so cool, man. So it's really just you reaching out to people and then working with whoever gets back to you or whoever responds.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, there are probably other ways. And if you have more leverage, if you have more like influence, um, then you could probably do more. You could reach out to other vocalists, and then you could kind of set up like a contract. Um, if it's a bigger vocalist where there's like a fee, obviously, and then there's royalty splits. But like it was amazing because it was a great song, and also there was no, she didn't have a fee at the time, so it was just kind of pure collaboration, which I loved. Like we weren't doing I wasn't paying her to get her vocal. She was like, I like this, and I think that actually goes a long way. Like if a vocalist, if you're working with them and they really like a demo that you have, they're going to do a better job than if you have a contract and they're kind of just trying to get the fee, maybe royalty split. I really try to, if I'm working with an artist, like just be wary of a fee because you can really kind of get um, cornered into maybe paying it and not really liking the outcome.
Yeah, man. Can you talk a little bit more about the process of collabing with the vocalist? It sounds like you had some kind of instrumental that you sent over, and then they bounce ideas back with you, or you like walk through it.
Yeah, of course. Um, so usually it kind of varies how you create a demo, or at least how I created this demo, um, or other demos who I with, worked with artists. Sometimes it's like you can do a remix. Maybe you do a remix and it's just kind of sitting there and you don't want to put it out. You can just take the acapella out and kind of say, "Hey, this is a demo." you know, um, I feel like I've done that maybe once or twice, or maybe even more. Because if it's a good instrumental and you already have like a great foundation and structure, um, it's just them coming in and kind of doing their thing. Um, I think the other way to get a demo going would be to just have an idea, and that's what that track I was mentioning. It was a melody idea, and then I went from melody to the harmony to the drums to the chorus, and then kind of built it out from there. Um, so there are multiple ways, and sometimes you can even start with something less so. Maybe it's just like a verse, or maybe it's just like the instrumental for something. But I know vocalists like to have a full length, you know, idea, so they can kind of so there's some flexibility, so they can lay down maybe the full thing if they wanted to, and they can have some sort of direction. So that's kind of how that, or how I usually kind of set up demos. It should be full length. It should be pretty built out, and sometimes it's just a remix that you liked that you didn't end up putting out without an acapella, or sometimes it's something totally new um, that you just made. Yeah,
Yeah, man. That I think is a great idea to create a remix with another song and then just use that because it works. And so the writing of the song, the lyrics, did she do that or how does that work?
yeah. So she did that, basically all of it, at least in this instance. Um, I provided feedback. Like if she gave, I remember there was one part of the verse, like the first verse, that I didn't like, these couple of lyrics that I didn't like. I was like, how about very nicely, because you don't want to be too yeah, to be like forceful, because ultimately they're the lyricist most of the time. Sometimes, unless you're like Drew from the Chainsmokers, you could do everything. Um, but I was like, I don't know about this. Like, how about we try like this line? I kind of gave her like a feel of what I wanted, something like lighter and maybe more subtle. And she was like, okay. And she would go back and yeah, replace that part and give me, another part of the stem. And it was great. It was kind of, and she like even agreed kind of after. She's like, okay, that makes sense. Um, so it's kind of like the ball is in their court a lot with the lyrics, but again, like as a producer and as, especially if it's your song as well as theirs, you should kind of speak out and voice what you think for the lyrics, because um, that's just going to be it's going to be good for both of you in the process, because you need to be happy about the lyrics. Um, and that kind of ties back to the fee. Like if there's a huge fee in place, it's like difficult. There sometimes the layout, like how many iterations you're allowed to do on the lyrics, and how much work they're allowed to do. So like with this, it was really, in this instance, it was really just uh, there was a good flow. But like other times, I've worked with artists, and it's been like you've gotten to the last iteration, and you're like, like I still don't really like it, and it kind of ends there. Like unfortunately, like so like as a producer, you have to be wary of that. But you need to have some influence in the writing process, I think. You know.
Yeah, man. You've also collabed with non-vocalists, or with like other producers?
Yeah, so I collabed. It was probably 5 years ago, maybe. I would collab with like another producer. His name's Yetep, which is,
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. What the heck?
you know him?
Yeah. You guys
Yeah,
created a song together, I'm assuming?
yeah. It's still on my Spotify. Um, back in the day, I think that was 2018. So I met him. I like put out a remix. I think he reached out and was like, "Oh, really like this." He was starting to get into producing. Um, wow, that's how old I am. He just started in 2018, and now he's actually that's crazy. Um, but I was like, hey, I was like, sure, let's get something going. Because I was excited to collab with anyone really, and
Yes.
he kind of reached out. I was like, sure. So I sent him this demo. I'm trying to think. I also sent him another demo, which he released on his own. Um, either way, so yeah, collaborating like with him, he was so in that instance, yeah, collaborating with another producer. He was kind of starting to get into producing, so he was kind of following my lead a little bit, and we would spend like if you're collaborating with a producer, it's really stems back and forth. Um, or if you're in the same room, that would be amazing, but um, that's not how it was. But we would send stems back and forth, and we kind of did that for 3 or 4 times, and ultimately, I finally kind of found an idea that I thought was good, and I sent it back to him, and he's like, "Oh, this is great. Like, let's get a vocalist." And that's when we got a vocalist, and we kind of worked together on that, um, and yeah, it was a good process. But at that point, it was more I was kind of taking the lead on that track, and he was adding in some other things. He was adding in like guitars. He was adding in maybe structural changes, um, which was interesting. But I think it still turned out well.
How do you feel about working with another artist versus making music by yourself?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sort of a solitary person
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
some ways, and I feel like people, at least some artists, feel that as well. I don't know. I think recently I've tried to reach out to other people to collaborate because I think it's really important to learn. Like I just remember collaborating with a few of my friends, like the amount that I learned from them was like I would never be able to find these different ways of processing a vocal or like ways of like distorting the master or like mixing techniques. Um, and you would just never find them because they created them themselves, and you learn from them. On the other hand, it's good to be self-sustaining. Like you want to. I always think of Russ when I talk about this because I love Russ. Um, he produces and he raps and he sings and he mixes and masters, and he did that for an album that went like I don't know, it was like 10 on the Billboard charts, and it's really good. So if you're able to do all of those things, like that's great because you don't need anyone else. You're independent. I think that's a very very good thing to have. Um, so in that way, I think you need to be at least versatile enough to maybe make songs almost on your own. On the other hand, collaborating is great. Like you learn a lot, and especially if you like someone particular, like you can make something that's really really good. But I think for me, um, it's sort of solitary, just because control. I need. I don't know if I would be able to get through something. Like if someone disagreed with me on like a point, I would be like, no, we can't do that.
Yeah, man. So really, collabing with other people can be good for learning new techniques, and this is also really exciting if you get to work with someone that you really like. But also you want to be able to rely on yourself and be able to do everything. You don't want to be relying on someone else to get a song done, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if you need someone else to play your, play your guitar or give you like piano samples, I think like an expert guitar player or someone that's helpful, but at the same time, like whenever you want to do something or you want to add something, it's a conversation to them. It's time taken. It's maybe resources. Maybe you have to pay them as well. Um, so it's in that way, it's not helpful. But again, like on the other side of that, there's like I'm not an expert guitar player. I'm pretty good. Like I'm good enough, but I'm not going to be able to create these pretty crazy, guitar loops that someone else might. So that's when like collaboration, like that's when I think it's beneficial. If there's like an expert that's going to come in and really help, then I think it's great. But like, would I ever count on someone for synth design? Probably not, because that's why that's why I'm here. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, man. You said you mostly produce on your own. What does your workflow look like when you're creating a song?
Yeah. Um, so I have a setup not here, actually sort of here, but I have a guitar, acoustic and electric, and at least for setup, and then I have a 48 key MIDI keyboard to play a little bit of piano. I'm kind of trying to teach myself a little bit, um, and then Ableton. Um, there's audio MIDI interface. I also have a Kemper amp. So a Kemper amp, I don't know if you've heard of it. It's like a guitar. It's like an amp. You know, it replicates an amp. It's like an amp simulator, and there are plugins that can do that. Like I'm sure if you wanted to play guitar in, you could use a software plugin. But so this is like a hardware um, plugin. So it sits like right over here. You can kind of modify a lot of things about the tone of the guitar, and it's absolutely amazing. Um, so that's kind of the setup. Um, nothing crazy. I wish I had more hardware, but that costs money, and that's which is unfortunate. But I think in terms of like workflow and creating, um, it's a good question. I think it kind of differs. I think I do my best work when you or when I have like a reference track. Like if I'm really inspired and I hear something that I really like, I usually go into the studio and try to make something similar. And that kind of sounds not creative, but I think it helps you because it kind of gives you direction, kind of like a remix does. Like you have the acapella and you have kind of like a BPM range and you have the key usually. Um, so like having a reference sort of track going into to creating, I think is helpful. So it usually starts with that, and then and then that's where you kind of go off and um, get to do whatever creative things that you'd like. Yeah.
Yeah, man. So you don't really have a specific set of guidelines that you follow every time. Really, like you often start with a reference tracks, but you don't have like at first I do this and then I do this. You can be like a little all over the place, or no?
Yeah, kind of. I know
Yeah.
artists like some artists have like templates, uh, like when if they're like FL Studio or Ableton, like you open up, you get like automatically have a template of stuff that you already want loaded. Um, I think that's good. I think also I just like totally. totally blank. Like, let's just experiment. Um, but in terms of, I don't know, starting a song, it's usually just you'd start with probably like a loop, or in terms of a remix, in terms of a like EDM song, you'd probably start with the chorus, or at least I start with the chorus because I think that's the most obviously important part of the song. It usually is. And if that's there, if there's a chorus that's good, it's probably going to motivate me to finish the whole thing. So it's usually just maybe like a build, start with a build, and then you kind of go into the chorus and try to like build something that's actually going to motivate you to want to send this out to get a vocalist, or if you wanted to do your own vocals or something like that. Um, but I think one last thing on that, like I think you also have to kind of create something new. That's really difficult, but there always has to be something about like a song, or if you're building a chorus, like that you're like, this is cool because I've never done this before, or I haven't heard this like been done before. I think that's also a motivating factor. Um, yeah,
Yeah, man. So every song you make, you should be trying to create something at least slightly new, or like add your own inspiration into it, right?
yeah, yeah. I think so. I mean, one of my favorite artists is uh, Gal Matthias. Do you know who he is?
No.
Got it. Okay, he's absolutely amazing. Um, but yeah, you gotta look him up. Um, I'll actually I'll send a song either after this is done. Um, but like his philosophy is like, if I'm going to put out a song, like it's going to be something that the samples or the patches, they're going to be something that people haven't really heard before, like the atmosphere, whatever. People aren't going to have heard this before, and that's what like motivates him. And I think that's kind of he's kind of right, um, because that's ultimately you have to differentiate yourself like in some way. So like that's how he starts a song. He's looking for something really unique. He's looking to really like chop something up, chop a sample up, or do something crazy with reverb. So I think that's another important thing when starting a song. It has to be something that you go like, oh, okay, like this is cool because I just figured this technique out, or I haven't, like, I don't even know how I did that. I think that's important to the songwriting process, kind of.
Yeah, man. What does it mean to you to be successful with music?
Yeah, it's a good question. Um, I don't know. I think there are definitely varying degrees. I mean, to be successful, I remember like listening to Proximity growing up for, yeah, since like 2010. All my friends, that's where we found, our songs. Um, I was like one day, like I have to get on their channel because it's just like that's that would be crazy. And in like 2013, 2014, I was like that would be insane. And then fast forward like 5 years later, and like I got on the channel. I was talking to the owner. I was like, this, in some ways, that's like that success to set a goal and have that ambition, and then actually achieve that goal. Like that, at some point, you could say I could have stopped like right there and just said that's it's almost good enough because as you set that goal and achieve it. Um, like that was a huge point of success for me. I think like I think another degree of success is like your friends like listening to your music. It might be different for people, but for people that to actually enjoy listening to your music, like regardless, like especially if they did know it was you, like they're not just trying to be nice and listen to your stuff. um, I think that's like people listening, like having your song played out at like a at a show. Like there are varying degrees, and it's really all up to you. Like it could just be having getting 1,000 plays on a song. Like that's huge. I remember when I got that. Like I was in high school, like running around like a maniac. Like that was success. But then it's also maybe it's like getting a million views. Um, I remember that as well. And then so it's just like it's relative. Like it's success is really relative, and um, I don't know if you work long enough and kind of diligently enough, you'll get there. But I don't think you can. Yeah, you can say it's exactly one thing or another. I think there are multiple points in someone's career where they feel success, and um, yeah, and I think that it's just really about achieving goals. Like you set a goal and you achieve it. That's a success. I don't know if there's a collective success. That's kind of what I think.
Yeah, you achieve these goals, and then it's on to the next bigger thing, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like uh, getting on that channel or getting X amount of views or having your parents like your site, like all of these things are cool things that that can happen. And then like for me, I think a goal I set like last year was like to sing and rap more and songwrite more and use my vocals to try to be again like sufficient or self sufficient. And that was another goal. And I've put out a couple of tracks where it's just it's just me. There's no vocalist. There's no remix. And that's been like even if it doesn't have 10 million views, it's still a goal and it's still success because all of that content in Ableton is me, and it's I achieved singing and like and writing my lyrics. So it's different. It's definitely different. Like it could be views, it could be again like yeah your friends. It could be getting a label, a label deal. It could be a lot of things. Um, I think it's just up to you to really determine it.
You have to define what success means to you, really.
Right?
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
man.
Yeah. It's true.
I think for a lot of people, one definition of success with music or with any passion that people are pursuing is the ability to make a living off of it, to make money from it.
Yeah.
Do you see music ever being that for you? A way that you could make money and potentially?
Yeah. I think that's interesting. That definitely is. That's a good point. A good. Some people use that as a barometer. If you're able to, yeah, actually make money and make a career out of it, then you actually you don't have a job. You do what you like for a living, which is amazing. Um, I don't know. I did think that it was maybe especially during high school and college. I thought that way. Um, I think it's very difficult, um, especially when I don't know the landscape is changing a lot from maybe SoundCloud to Spotify, and I was never focused on making making money and kind of marketing. It takes so much marketing as well, and I think where I'm not great is again marketing and maybe connecting with people, and I think that's a huge part of the business that I've maybe left out of the project. Um, I think those parts are really necessary to make a career out of it, to connect with a lot of people and just like yeah be active. Um, but I think I definitely did think it was that way, at some points I still do think it's that way. Um, but at other times it's difficult. Like you kind of try to be realistic, and kind of plan your path forward, um, and understand, can you do this for a living? Can you actually, can you support yourself, and what's kind of your ceiling, or is there no ceiling? Um, I think for me, it's kind of alternating of having this dream, and trying to achieve it, and then also some sort of reality where I'm like, well, maybe it's just a hobby, and maybe you continue to do it in your free time. And I'm not sure which one's ultimately right or wrong. Um, on the one hand, you only have one life. On the other hand, it's risky, um, but not if you love it. Um, you'll kind of grind, and do what you want, even if you don't make money. I think it's difficult. I mean, art, most competitive industry, and uh, you know, by that, the least paid. So yeah, I think I thought both ways, and I still think maybe both ways right now.
Yeah. And do you even need to make money from it for you to be successful? You know?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. Um, I don't think so. I mean, again, like it's so relative. People could, someone I could put out one song, and or you could put out one song and be totally satisfied. Like maybe like one of your favorite artists listened to your song. Maybe that's it. Maybe you're really like satisfied with that, and a lot of our artists aren't. They're like they have this vision, and they want to continue and try to explore, and that's what music's all about. Um, I definitely don't think you have to make money to be successful. I mean, it almost is in the opposite way. If you're trying to make money, it's it kind of hurts your, I don't know, motivation. I remember working with someone who it was really largely about a business, and making money, and what was the return we were going to get, and what was going to happen, and that was just so uninspiring, and ultimately it does affect the music. So um, yeah, you definitely don't have to make money. You can have a job, which most people do, and do it on the side, and continue to work towards it. Um, there's definitely time for that. People, even if you have a full time job, you could do it after the job, and on weekends. And um, yeah, I think that if it's meant to work out, it's going to work out.
Yeah, man. And I have heard people say that started as like a bedroom producer once they got to the point where they could support themselves off of music. It felt more like a job, and that kind of hurt their passion for it. You know?
Oh wow, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because it's a lot of pressure. I mean, I remember coming out of college. I guess COVID happened. I think. Are you the same year? Are
I'm
you the
2020.
2020?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
jeez,
Twins.
got
Yeah.
screwed. Um, but like I remember coming out of, or going into the final couple of months of college, and being like, Matt, I was starting to kind of get some traction. And I was like, maybe I should try to do it like full time, and totally just grind and see what I could do. Um, but yeah, it's like a lot, and at that point, it's not even a lot of risk, because again, everything's gonna be fine. You could get a job, um, but like it's a lot of mental burden. I think, at least for me, when I was contemplating that, like that's going to be your job. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to be creative, because ultimately no amount of hours that you input is going to directly relate to output, which is art, and that's tough. because if you were to put 10,000 hours into maybe investment banking, you'd definitely make a lot of money. Um, but if you put 10,000 hours into music, which I think I put a little bit, I think I remember calculating it. I'm pretty sure it's like 13 or 14,000, probably more now.
That's crazy.
But then like, but there's no, there's no direct output. It's great, but like in terms of content or in terms of making money, yeah, there's no direct like, you know amount of money you're going to make. So it's risk. There's some mental burden, I think, as well. But I think it's great to have a job and then do it on the side because you have enough time. And if it's meant to work out, I really think it will work out.
Well, what do the next 5 to 10 years look like for Goons? Do you plan on continuing to make music, or what's the plan?
Yeah. Um, I don't know. I think I'm a pretty impulsive um, music maker. So whatever I like at the moment, I'm making in terms of like genres. It's been house. It's been rap. It's been a lot of different things. So it's whatever I feel. I've been like DJing a little bit as well. I've been trying to get. I just played like I just played at a bar maybe last week, 2 weeks ago, and it was fun. Like I DJed a little bit, but actually they had like club equipment, and it was fun. Trying to get out and do that a little bit more, um, be a little bit more social. But in terms of music, it's just continue to go forward and kind of whatever I'm feeling at that moment to make because um, because ultimately I don't have a massive team around me. I'm I get to do what I want, which is good, and yeah, there's a lot of freedom. So I think I think it's a lot of different things, a lot of vocal things, and definitely some EDM things as well. I've been getting back into that a lot. So
Yeah, exciting, man.
yeah,
You produce because you want to make music.
yeah, yeah. It started as that, and now it's kind of it's still definitely being a main producer, but it's also kind of exploratory. Like computer music is crazy. I mean, people still don't understand how much potential it has. Um, I'm sure we could talk about like AI and some bullshit as well. What's next for that? I don't know. I don't know if you have to check out. Do you know this Sin plant?
No, what is that?
So it's a synth. It's a synth that they just like they made an update. They added like an AI whatever into it, and it's just crazy. Um, it's basically like a sample generator. If you put in a sample, say you put in um, a kick drum, it'll create 15, 20 kick drums that are similar, which is just crazy. So if you like a sound and you want to experiment with like a lot of different variations, it's just, it's crazy. But again, computer music, it's definitely the place to be, I think, and definitely a good thing to have. It's amazing, amazing what you can do.
What is that synth called?
It's called Synplant, Synplant. Yeah, you have to at least watch a video. It's
Yeah,
people get um, so excited. It's yeah, very cool.
it's so exciting. It's just the beginning too.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I mean, it's just even I remember watching like a interview with Skrillex, and he's like, this is back in like 2015 or 2014 when they were doing Jack U, and he was like, people have no idea how many things can be created, you know, in computer music. It's just yeah, people don't understand, um, and there's so much potential as well, especially now. So it'll be interesting to see.
Probably like an unlimited number of variations and sounds and just everything you can make.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
crazy.
like even if you have like Serum, even if you have Serum, just the amount of things you can do, it's just doesn't make sense. Like Virtual Riot, I was watching a video with Virtual Riot, and it's just things you can do with a soft synth or processing. It's just it doesn't make sense. It's crazy.
Yeah, he does a lot of Serum like sound design, right? Virtual Riot.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
yeah. On
He's
YouTube,
yeah,
he posts like
yeah,
tutorials.
yeah. He does. He streams sometimes of him just like creating things, or he goes through like how he made a song, and it's just crazy. He uses Serum and processes with like Ableton stock plugins, or maybe he has some other third party plugins, but it's just it's just crazy how you're able to transform a sound, especially if effect wise, like post effects. It just doesn't make sense, and there's so much creativity. It's yeah. So yeah, I'm excited for that stage, and also to to explore that part of electronic music a little bit more, like sound design.
Definitely, man. I want you to share where people can find you in your music.
Yes, absolutely. SoundCloud, we are Goons. That should be the URL. And then Spotify is just Goons. I think there's maybe one more, but I'm definitely better than them. So just type in Goons. You should be good. But
Awesome, man.
those are the two places. And on Instagram, Goons official. That's it. Of
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you, Sean, for doing this interview. I learned a lot. It was great talking to you, man. Appreciate it.
course. Thank you, Ted.